Hey, welcome back to that God Power channel. This is the channel where we're going to unlock the God Power that's laying dormant on the inside of you. But in today's episode, what we're going to do is continue breaking down the book of Genesis like we've been doing. So in the last episode, we broke down Genesis chapter 1. And I told you that in this episode, we were going to talk about Adam and Eve. But I told you I wasn't going to spoil everything. So this is Genesis chapter 2, the story of Adam and Eve. So let's check that out. Just jump straight into it. Like if you didn't see the last one, go back and check it out, because Genesis is going to be kind of chronological. You kind of got to catch it from the beginning to know what's going on. I mean, you can kind of pick it up in the middle, but you might want to catch it from the beginning. So anyways, to start off, so the creations of heaven and earth and everything in it was completed. And on the seventh day, God rested and he finished his creation. And God blessed the seventh day and he declared it holy, because it was the day that he rested from all his work and the creation. And this is the account of the creation of the heavens and the earth. So chapter 2 is the account. They're going to tell you how, like they're going to go in depth. So chapter 1, if we can remember, was telling you day by day what happened. Now chapter 2 is going in depth on the sixth, I believe the sixth day. Let's see, let's check it out. So when the Lord God made earth and he made the heavens, neither wild plants nor... Okay, so they're going to go into the whole story again, but they're going to detail it a little bit more. We're going to zoom into certain parts. Neither wild plants nor grains were growing on the earth, for the Lord had not yet sent the rainwater to the earth, and there was no people to cultivate the soil. So instead, springs came up from the ground and watered all the land. Now, that's pretty cool, because God had like a irrigation system on the earth already, just built in, springs. But these springs come back. The story that I took notes on last night, you'll see where these springs come back into play. Anyways, then the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground. He breathed the breath of life into the man's nostrils, and the man became a living person. Without the breath of life, we're just some dust from the ground, bro. So if God didn't breathe his breath into us, weren't breathing that breath, we would just be dust. Like what we consider an inanimate object. Interesting. Then the Lord God, he planted a garden in Eden in the east. And then that's where he placed man. Okay, that's where he made the first man. Lord God made all sorts of trees grow up from the ground, trees that were beautiful, some that produced delicious fruit. In the middle of the garden, he placed the tree of life and the tree of good, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, know this, there's two sacred trees in the middle of the Garden of Eden. One's called the tree of life. It doesn't necessarily go into the function of that in this verse, but the other one's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is that tree that gives us some problems later on. So a river flowed from the land of Eden, watering the garden. So again, the earth is doing its own self-irrigation and dividing into 4 branches. The first branch, called Pishon, flowed the entire land of Havilah, where where gold is found. So there's a land of Havilah, which again, this might be the Middle East, not necessarily Israel, but somewhere around that area. But it's not very clear, because these cities aren't named the same thing. Not all of them. Some of them are actually. You'll hear that in a second. The gold of that land is exceptionally pure. Aromatic resins and onyx stone are also found there. So this land has lots of jewels and precious stones. The second branch, called the Gihon, flowed around the entire land of Cush. Now Cush, I think isn't that Egypt? Or I could be wrong. But I thought ancient Egypt was called Cush. Like the ancient Egypt, but maybe it's like Egypt-ish, I don't know. The third branch, called the Tigris, which still exists today, the Tigris River, flowed east of the land of Asher. So now we know that we're somewhere in Africa, at least. We can at least assume that we're somewhere in Africa. And the fourth branch called the Euphrates. So now we confirm that we're in Africa. Tigris and Euphrates are both places in Africa. So we're somewhere on that side of Africa. Interesting. That's where the Garden of Eden is, somewhere around there. This is probably like a Wakanda type place, bro. It's probably like hidden off from the whole world. You're going to see in a second, though. How? Watch. Let's keep on going. The Lord placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. But the Lord God warned him, "You may freely eat of every fruit tree in the garden, except from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you eat its fruit, you are sure to die." Now, God just breathed the breath of life into man. And he said, just do what work the grounds, make sure it's cool. Make sure this garden is nice and you can eat anything from here. So it's not even like a slave type relationship. It's like bro, be free, have fun, just enjoy yourself. But just don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil because you're going to die, bro. So then the Lord God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I'll make a helper who is just right for him." So the Lord God formed from the ground all of the wild animals and all the birds of the sky. Remember, this is the sixth day. He brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And the man chose a name for each one. When I learned this made me think that God created man as like an AI. Because what were we supposed to do? We're supposed to tend the ground, supposed to help and tend the ground, and then he brought the animals to name us when God just clearly named the sea, he named the land, he named the sky. But he was like, "Hey, AI human, what do you want to call this?" And we named all the animals. So it's kind of like me typing in the chat GPT, showing it a picture of something I drew and say, "Hey, what do you want to name that?" That's kind of how I think of it, at least. The man gave them names, all the livestock, all the birds of the sky, and all the wild animals. But still, there was no helper just right for him. So the Lord God created the man, or he made the man fall asleep in like a really, really deep sleep. And while the man was asleep, the Lord God took out one of his ribs and then closed up the opening. So God's doing surgery, bro. God's doing surgery, bro. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib and brought her to the man. So from his own rib, God made a woman for him. At last, the man exclaimed, "This is bone from my bone, flesh from my flesh. She will be called woman because she was taken from a man." Now, this is cool. A lot of women today have the spirit of like, man, I don't like the Bible because it says stuff like this. And we're supposed to be from a man? No, I'm my own person. Yes, man, you're your own person. But this is how things got started. Just understand. This is how things got started. And you got to play your roles. I mean, I would assume, according to the word, just do what you're supposed to do. Like in Eve's case, she was a helper for Adam, right? Now, in other women in the Bible, you're going to see that they have other roles. Like we run across some queens, we run across other helpers, we run across mothers, we run across daughters, we run across revolutionaries. Like all kinds of women are in the Bible. But Adam was like, "At last." As soon as he's seen her, he's like, "Oh my gosh, at last." But this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Because it's been like that from the jump. God designed it like that. Okay? Now, the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. They didn't feel any shame, and that is the end of chapter 2. So, chapter 2, again, it just details parts of chapter 1, mainly the sixth day, and it lets us have some insight into what happened on the sixth day and in how man and animals and woman came to be and interacted with each other. So I hope you learned something from that Bible breakdown. It was simple. I'll put the words on the screen just like I did in the first one. But if you're looking forward to the next one is when the fall happens. So this is where the serpent gets introduced and all that kind of stuff. So if you're ready for that one, be on the lookout for chapter 3 coming out next. But other than that, I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful, blessed day. And remember that you got that God power. On your heart, tugging on your... Get them.